Hi, I'm Dustin Elcock with MichiganFilmScene.com, here today with Durand Pape of PapeTon Productions. How are you doing today, Durand?
I'm doing pretty good.
Tell me, you look pretty young. How old are you?
16.
16, and you're still in high school.
Yep.
What grade are you in?
I'm going into junior.
Going to junior high?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And what are you taking any film classes in high school?
Next year, in junior year, I'll be going to VOTEC for audio-video production.
Have you visited there to see what kind of
Yes, I have. Visited,
have?
I think, 3 times now.
Great.
And I did the Fine Arts Center.
So after high school, what do you plan on doing then? You plan on continuing your education at locally at JCC or going out elsewhere?
I'm not quite sure yet whether I go to JCC or a different college for some sort of film production situation, and then just kind of hope to try and pick up odd jobs in the film industry until you kind of just work your way up.
What was your first film, and how old were you?
A Walk in the Park, and I think I was 14. Yeah, 14 when we first did that one.
So you've been doing film for 2 years?
Probably about a year before that. We were kind of getting into it, but hadn't really done anything fully professional, like got anything completely together yet, I guess you could say. But, you know, learning the tools of the trade a little bit and trying to understand it a little better and just doing little short things.
And what kind of equipment did you use on your first film?
A pretty old camera, but it was a Sony camera of some sort, so they filmed open water with it. I mean, it filmed 720 HD, so it was pretty good for that film. And so that's all we used on that one. We didn't have any sound equipment yet.
Great camera for a first film to start out with.
Yeah, it worked pretty well.
And what kind of sound equipment did you use with that?
With that one, we just used the onboard microphone.
Okay.
For that one.
And what about for post? What kind of equipment did you use? Software, computer?
I had an Acer laptop and PowerDirector 9, which is a pretty good program to start out with. It lets you do a lot with simple tools.
So this is a war film, correct?
Yes, it was.
And so how did you go about did you use blood, sound effects?
Well, what we did for that one is we already had most of the uniforms and everything, but with the blood, we had very expensive uniforms, and on a low film budget, we couldn't ruin any of them. So in the end, we just had a crappy shirt.
That's fine.
And we poured some blood on that crappy shirt and just kind of put some bloody gauze on it, and it was just some fake blood. It was fine.
So your first film, A Walk in the Park, how did you go about financing it, and your special effects, your costumes, and your audio that you used?
Well, financing the film, basically, me and the other main character, we already had our uniforms, and we basically just went to Goodwill, bought a couple of $3 shirts, and painted them up to look like the uniforms, and through birthday money, bought some more equipment and airsoft guns instead of the real ones and everything. And then we had a few reenactors come in to help us out with their uniforms and their acting abilities and weapons. And for some of the special effects, we were using Action Essentials 2, which just does files of muzzle flashes, shells, and blood and everything, and explosions. And for pyrotechnics, we had a couple explosions in the film. It was just a small mixture of gunpowder and a car battery, simple stuff. And basically for the blood, we used digital blood when people got shot. And in the very end, this one guy gets shot, and basically to avoid ruining our expensive uniforms, we basically pulled back the jacket and put blood on a $3 Goodwill shirt, and then used the gauze to wipe it up and everything. And
cool.
That's pretty much all we used on that film.
So how'd you learn to come up with some of these things? Did you watch YouTube videos of other people doing it?
Yeah, some of it was kind of our ideas, and through my dad understanding a lot of the stuff. And yeah, YouTube videos definitely help sometimes. You can find some pretty good how-to videos, but you know, sometimes you just need to engineer some things yourself.
So your first film was a war movie, and I believe your second one as well, correct? Yes. And what was that called?
That one was A Mission from God.
And you had some pyrotechnics in that, correct?
Yes.
And how'd you go about doing that, and who helped you out with that?
Well, basically, my father and Alex Hallett, a kid from this area, one of my friends, assisted in the pyrotechnics. And basically what they are is just a packet of duct tape filled with a very small amount of black powder and stretched out steel wool, and then 2 wires that go from the steel wool and to a car battery. And when you touch the other end of the car battery, it lights the steel wool on fire, which lights the gunpowder, black powder on fire, and it just makes a big controlled little flame. It's not really an explosion, so it's safe to be around because nothing is containing it. So it's just this nice big poof of fire, and then you add a good explosion sound effect, and it looks real.
So do you go in afterwards and add additional flames or muzzle flashes?
No, all the explosions that we used a pretty good black powder. It was smokeless, so everything looked pretty fantastic from my end, so I just used sound effects.
Great.
And for one of them, I did make some extra shrapnel as it was destroying something that wasn't actually being destroyed.
Did you use the same filming equipment and editing software on A Mission from God that you did on A Walk from the Park?
Well, what changed on A Mission from God is we did get a fully brand new HD camera, not a very high quality one. It was a smaller, cheaper one, but it still shot full 1080p HD. And then we had actually you come in with your sound equipment and help us out there. And so the sound in the film definitely sounded much more professional in this one. And we did use the same editing software, Power Director 9, but I do believe they had updated it a little bit after that. And the same Acer laptop with Action Essentials too.
Now, watching Mission from God, I noticed you had some 3D modeling going on with the airplanes as well as a train. How'd you go about making those or acquiring those?
Well, basically we did kind of ILM it with, George Lucas kind of thing. We went and just decided, all right, we got to make some airplanes in the beginning, and we went and bought a 1/72nd scale model. It was only about that long, the wingspan, and we basically hooked it up with fishing line to this little dolly system we designed, and in front of an orange screen, because the plane had green and blue on it, an orange screen, and basically we just kind of on this dolly track moved it to make the motions of the airplane, and we could go forward and left to right, and we just kind of filmed those and started taking out the orange and putting it in front of a sky background that I had that was moving, and toned the darkness and added Action Essentials tracers and explosions.
Very cool.
And sound effects.
Very useful,
And with the train in the end, basically that was a really great idea. With my father, we realized that in the original cut it was supposed to be, the wife is supposed to be just inside a house sitting in front of the sink, and then the soldier walks in and she sees him. But instead we realized, well, our house looks like a train station. It really was designed to. So we decided we'd make it a train station in England when the train arrives and she's waiting outside. And so we shot the train station on an upper angle, and my dad has this online video game where you get to design your own train layout basically and put in moving trains. And we basically just made a big circle track and a huge cliff up against the tracks and painted the huge cliff blue. And then we just had the train go in there and you could record from the video game. So we just had this green Flying Scotsman English train pull up into screen with blue in the background, and I just went in through the editing program, took out the blue, put it in there, and then tweaked it, added some shadows so it looked more in the environment, and then sound effects and smoke.
Wow, that's very awesome that you went through all that and got that.
It took a while,
look.
but I was very pleased with the final product on that scene.
Very awesome. So are you currently working on any new projects?
Right now we are working on our first feature film called Not in Vain, which is another war film. But this one will be a lot more important as, for one, it'll be feature length, and it has a much deeper story to it with the soldiers that fought there and the courage and the bravery that was there, and the fact that it is based upon a real man that I have come to slightly know from his father.
And how did you come about meeting this person?
Well, when I posted A Walk in the Park, this man had contacted me through my website, which was linked to my YouTube channel. And basically, he's from England, and his father was in the war, and he was on Operation Market Garden. And so he contacted me, and he was talking to me about a little bit of his father's story, how he didn't know too much about it, but knew that he was in this exact unit. And so that way, I kind of knew that there was this real-life man that was there, but I still would be able to have some of the creativity as we didn't know his complete story.
So from there, you're kind of basing off him, but writing a story around and kind of filling in the gaps from what
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. Basically, we went through, and I found the exact unit in which this man was. And I went through, looked at all the war diaries, which are the officers explaining everything that happened during the battle, and I was able to have basically freedom of being able to decide what this man's story was in these exact situations. Kind of like with Titanic, Jack and Rose, they're in a real situation, but you still manage to write your own story with it.
When do you plan on releasing this?
We're hoping for a deadline of releasing it about March 2014.
And you said it's a feature film, and
Yes.
this will be your first feature film, correct?
Mhm.
And the other ones, how long were they? They were both short films,
The first
right?
one was about 11 minutes, and the second one was 20 minutes.
And you film everything in Michigan.
Yes.
Right. And you basically have a setup at your home base that you're recreating all these structures,
PapeTon
correct?
Productions Lot 1,
Lot
as
1.
we call it. PTP Lot 1.
And that is out of Adrian,
Yes.
Michigan, correct?
Adrian, it's out in our backyard. Parents let me cut out a small space, probably about 20 yards wide and about 100 yards long, and it was nothing but weeds, and I cut it down and made a small path in it and built some small French-looking destroyed buildings.
So with war films, you end up having to have a lot of extras. Where do you get your extras? Do you go to reenactments and have people come to be in your films?
Basically, that's the amount of extras I get, is the reenactors that are willing to come out and bring their uniforms and their weapons and help out the best they can. And sometimes they have extra uniforms to bring too, and I'll have maybe like a few kids from my school that are willing to do it too, and then they'll come over and they'll use some of the extra uniforms we have, and that kind of brings it up to a rather okay number of soldiers in the unit for the films.
So speaking of kids in your school, after people have seen your films, do you start getting a response like, oh, I want to be in your next film? Do you start getting a lot more people talking to you about that?
Yes, it definitely did get, after A Mission from God, there was quite a few people that wanted to be like, so we're going to be in your next movie. All right, okay, so you can be in the next movie. And so we do have like this, in this next movie where the soldiers walk into Holland and all the Dutch civilians are standing outside congratulating their new occupants. So I'm going to have a lot of extras from the school and family out sitting in front just in old looking uniforms or clothing, being civilians in it.
So that's great that you're able to involve the community, classmates, people around the area in your projects.
Oh, most definitely. It's definitely going to be a lot of fun.
So do you have anything planned that's not war related, or do you see yourself strictly making war films?
Well, I definitely enjoy the historic amount of the films, and basically it was more or less the reason we do those is we have all the uniforms and props to do them for me and my best friend being in the reenacting units. But I do have this girl in my class who is writing a story right now, a novel, and we're going to make a film version of that she's willing to do.
Did you agree to do this before reading it?
No, I read some of it.
Okay, all right. So you're not going to see him then be like, oh, wow, I really should have read this first.
Oh, no.
Or did I make a mistake?
It's very good.
Okay. So as a young filmmaker, what challenges do you face, and just in filmmaking in general?
Money. Lots of money. It becomes a very big problem. Trying to fund your film and everything. But another big problem with, especially just being young, is the fact that not as many people will trust you that what you're trying to do is really professional. They think you're just maybe trying to make some sort of childish kind of YouTube video that you're going to put on with cheesy effects and story and acting and just to throw out there as a YouTube viral video or whatnot. But when we're actually, trying to get the actual stuff and be really professional about it to get out a good cinematic piece.
So what advice, if any, do you have for young filmmakers such as yourself trying to produce these films?
Well, I guess, you just got to try and be yourself and not really let anyone, slash at your work. Even if you can't get the funding you want, you may have to change some certain things, but try to keep your story how you want it so that you can display what you came up with to the public in the way you want it to be seen, whether you have some more difficulties doing it or not.
Well, thank you very much, Durand from PapeTon Productions out of Adrian, Michigan. And join us again for another interview on MichiganFilmScene.com.